G'day folks, Andy here from McDowall Manor. So here's another crafty episode from the Manor. What you can see me doing there is racking off my Cumquatcello. So probably well over a month ago, or maybe even 2 months ago, I harvested a heap of kumquats. You can see them in there. They're with an alcohol base and a whole bunch more sugar. Now, for those who haven't eaten kumquat, it's bitter. Most people make marmalade out of it. It doesn't taste lemony, but it's probably just as bitter as a grapefruit or a lemon. Quite a bit of fruit. And instead of limoncello, I use it to make Cumquatcello. Okay, you can see what I'm doing is I'm just running it through a funnel. In the funnel we have a coffee filter paper, and that catches the sediment and any bits that happen to fly in. So it's a nice little chore will be to rack off that Cumquatcello. Love the Cumquatcello. But in other exciting news, a new project for me will be to make ginger beer, and I'll in fact make, where are we? There we are, an alcoholic ginger beer. So I'll be interested to see how that goes. The fellow at the shop, who is, as you can imagine, has become a friend of mine, young Stuart, the manager, told me he likes to throw a little bit of fresh chilli in there when it's brewing, and also a clump of homegrown ginger. So we might do both of those, since I have chilies in abundance and I'm also growing ginger. So we'll watch this unfold. You probably, well, I won't see this on YouTube for a while because you need the ferment time and stuff, but we'll document it as it goes along, and hopefully you'll get a bit of interest out of that. So in the continuing saga of the alcoholic ginger beer, what we're going to do is, well, what we have in fact done is we've added all the ingredients to this fermenter. Now the difference for me with how I normally make spirits is you only use 23.5 litres of water instead of 25. So we've added what they call the dry ingredients, which they don't actually tell you, the crafty foxes. They don't tell you what it is. If you have a look, it looks like almost like little salt crystals. Not quite sure what's going on there, folks, but we've added it as we've been told. I can tell you that it is not yeast, because we're going to add a packet of yeast, which from what research I've done would appear to me to be a champagne yeast. You add 1 kilo of sugar compared to the 6 kilos I normally add for my liqueurs. I add this humongous bottle of ginger beer essence, 100 ml of it. That's the bottle the kit comes in. Now this rum and coke is important because it happens to be the one that I'm drinking. But anyway, so you add all that in, and I'll just take the time, hopefully you'll be able to see. No, you can't. Bugger bum, there was one floating before, so I could have showed you. What I also added, I went out into the garden and got a big knob of ginger. I dug it out of the pot and I chopped it up very finely. I scraped the skin off with a knife, and I've added that as well just to give it some extra flavour punch. And I don't, to be honest, don't really like the idea of a flavour essence. I try to avoid those where I can. So we'll see if we can do like I did with the rum. You know, usually I use a flavour essence, but I also taught myself to make it with burnt sugar and molasses, which I reckon is great. So if I can do a similar thing with this ginger beer, I'm actually going to start to move towards that. I don't mind buying champagne yeast. That's good. It's a good way of assuring yourself that when you use wild yeast, you're never quite sure what you can get, and you'll have the odd batch that goes really wrong, to be frank. We'll avoid that. So I'm about to do the final step, well, the final step pre-ferment, which is we're going to add this little bit of yeast, which looks like only about a teaspoon to me, and we'll throw them into the fermenter. Now, We're back to the old days that I was used to with normal yeast, where you run that, if you go to 30 degrees you're going to kill it because it's too hot. Now the new yeasts, as it turns out, you run a lot hotter than that, which I find very strange, but not to worry. So at the moment we're on about 28 degrees. I'm going to add the yeast, which is right there. Then I'm going to stir the bilio out of it with that big spoon that's sticking out there. Then I'll put the lid on, which you can see has an airlock there that stops air coming in but lets carbon dioxide go out. And we'll let that little baby ferment and we'll see what happens next, eh? Alrighty. So there's that fermenter with the ginger beer. What's proved really interesting for me, I guess, because I'm used to distilling, fermenting spirits, that water lock there would be bubbling like crazy. This uses a much smaller amount of yeast, and it's champagne yeast, not distiller's yeast. And you can see, just like magic, it bubbled for us. That lets me know the yeast is eating the sugar. That produces alcohol and carbon dioxide, which is what's bubbling out there. But yeah, like I say, the message for me or anyone else who does beer or spirits, the ginger beer is really slow, folks. It took 2 days to start, which caused me a bit of grief. I thought it had died. And it's not even a tenth of the speed of bubble that I'm used to seeing. So, adjusted expectations whilst making ginger beer.